Because of the way the light is. That's good. Is that who wrote that article?
I'm not sure, but they
It's gotta be. Is it Luke? Did Luke write that one?
Luke Wheeler. Who rang you?
I don't remember.
Thanks, Adam. Well, I'm in Alabama in the Sky Boxing Gym of Deas, who's sitting in front of me, flicking through boxing news now with Deontay on the cover. I'm going to present that to Deontay shortly. We're here before the arrival of the Bronze Bomber. Well, he's not the Bronze Bomber till fight week, is he? Jay, first of all, catching up with you. Haven't seen you for a few months. You've lost some weight.
Yeah. It's all been good. It's just a matter of everybody on this team is kind of a workout fanatic, so we're always in the gym one way or another. So it's all good.
Tell me, how many injuries have you had holding the mitts for Deontay in this camp?
Mostly my elbows are the problem. It's one of those things where I used to play baseball, so I already had a little bit of a pre-existing elbow injury from my youth, but it's gotten worse. And Deontay hitting it feels just like you spraining your ankle. You're turning your ankle over on someone's foot playing basketball. I've also had a hernia that Deontay caused when he hit me just up under the bodysuit. And then last camp with the Ortiz fight, he separated the rib from the cartilage with a left hook. So
it doesn't hit very hard then.
It's quite significant. It's very real and very different.
So you actually can talk in real terms of the respect you must have for his power.
Well, it's kind of funny because people still don't believe it sometimes, and I don't understand how they don't. If you don't want to believe me, then you should certainly believe Jamil McCline, who said that Deontay Wilder hits not like a human being. You know, a guy that fought for the world heavyweight title 4 times, says that. And he said that after boxing in 20-ounce gloves and headgears. So when people like that are telling you that, or Malik Scott, or Junior Fa, or Stephen Shaw, and Craig Lewis, and Ivan Ditchko, and all these guys are saying the same thing, you would think that people would believe it, but it's almost like they can't quite grasp that a human being can hit that hard, but he really does.
Tangibly, we're here in your gym today on the outskirts of Tuscaloosa. Where you're a couple of days from heading to Las Vegas. You can hear all the hubbub behind us. You've got several heavyweights who I've watched sparring today. Do you feel a little bit like the Pied Piper of heavyweight boxing over here at the moment?
It's kind of funny. It's an interesting thing that Alabama would be a place where in the gym right now we have one from Cuba, one from Germany, one from New Zealand, one from Los Angeles, one from Detroit, one from New York. So it's an amazing thing that all these guys have come for this, and it's I really enjoy it. I have a good time with it. I think it's fantastic.
All the talk.
I can tell you this.
Yeah.
I can tell you the local restaurants absolutely love us because these guys eat unlike anything you've ever seen before. I mean, I know because I'm the one that pays the bill. But it's an incredible thing to see when we walk in the door. The level of service we get is really high because they know that these guys are gonna eat.
It's called industry, isn't it? You know. Look, before we go on to Deontay and talking about him and his camp and the second fight with Tyson Fury, I've got to ask you about your relationship with the Bronze Bomber, with Deontay Wilder, because you are alumni of the same high school, for a start, which I learnt recently. And also, of course, you're a former reporter, which I want to delve into a little bit. So first of all, you tell me with alacrity when I say you went to the same high school that you weren't in the same year as Deontay.
No, I was much earlier than Deontay was. It's really quite a fascinating story, but the short version is, in the late 70s, you had an all-white high school and an all-black high school 2 miles apart, and they integrated and brought all the students together. And one school became 9th and 10th grade, and one school became 11th and 12th. That was where I came through in the late 80s. I graduated in 87. So I was part of this massive high school that was phenomenal at every sport. And then as time went on, they started what they call neighborhood schools, and they split the schools up. So essentially, they resegregated. They went from desegregation to resegregation, and it doesn't make any sense to me. But that was when Deontay came along. So we went to the same high school, but it was like two very different scenarios, and a lot of years between.
Central High, wasn't it?
Central High School, yeah, not maybe the most creative of names, but at the end of the day, it's still a great high school.
Do you know what's funny? I got into a cab or an Uber from Birmingham Airport to here to Tuscaloosa, and the taxi driver remembered Deontay playing American football, believe it or
Yes.
not. And he said, I remember he was a really formidable player.
Yeah, Deontay was great at every sport. He was very, very good at football, and I think basketball was his favorite. He also did track and field. People don't know this, but the name Tuscaloosa, our city, is the only city in the world named Tuscaloosa. It's named after an Indian chief, a Native American, who was very, very tall, much taller and much larger, and he was a warrior. And so the name Tuscaloosa literally translates into Black Warrior, which is the name of the river that runs 100 yards behind the gym. So what are the odds that the heavyweight champion of the world, who's an extremely tall guy and quite a warrior, comes from a city born and raised that is actually named Tuscaloosa, which means Black Warrior?
It's incredible, that.
It's an amazing thing.
Now, obviously, we share a career because you were a reporter. Tell us a little bit about that, because, you know, it's many years ago now, but before you got into training boxers, before you met Deontay, you were a reporter. Tell us what you were up to.
Well, my family's always been media based. My brother's a reporter and has been for 30 plus years, newspaper, and I got into TV. And we were always into boxing, so that was kind of the hobby, was the boxing. I became a crime reporter because sports was all full, and I probably wasn't good enough to do sports anyway. So I became a crime reporter, and it was a lot of fun. I did it here, and I did it for a couple of years down in Florida. And the cool thing about crime is, you know, anything can happen at any time, so you're getting called out at 2 o'clock, 3 o'clock, 4 o'clock in the morning to cover things. And it's great when you're a single guy, but if you want to be married and settle down, it's not such a great thing. So I got out of that and came back to start the boxing gym with my brother. So my parents were quite dismayed at the thought that I would throw away my education and throw away my TV career to start a boxing gym in a town that hadn't had a boxing show in over a decade. Didn't go over too well, but I went with the plan anyway.
But the rest is history, of course. You've been with Deontay Wilder a very long time. Was he the catalyst then for you becoming a trainer and getting heavily involved in the sport?
Well, we started the gym in 95, and so we were doing shows and promoting young boxers in 95. And Deontay came along in late 2005. And I tell people all the time, if he'd come 5 years earlier, I don't know that we would have known what to do with him because we were young in the game. By the time he came along, we had been a decade in the sport. We had taken guys to Finland and Dubai and England and Italy and Germany and France, and we knew who the good guys were and who the bad guys were. So when Deontay came along, we saw that we had the potential there to really be something. We slowed down, and then we started really seeing who the best were that could help with his career. And what was funny is a lot of the people who had treated me horribly when I had 4 and 6 round kids on their shows didn't pay us, put us 4 to a room, no meal money, nobody picked us up at the airport. These were the same guys that were saying, I want to help you with Deontay's career. Fortunately, we knew better.
How did you first know? Can you remember your first recollection of seeing Deontay? And how did you know, or what stage did you know that you had someone incredibly special on your hands?
Well, you know, the thing is, he started off on day one, and I had him do a few footwork drills, no punches, and I walked away. And usually when you walk away and you turn around and you glance back, they're already throwing punches and trying to do what they see on YouTube, all this garbage. But Deontay had not done that. He was actually still working on the footwork even more diligently when he didn't think I was watching. So I knew right then we had something. But the thing people don't get about Deontay is by no means was Deontay a phenom. Deontay was just all arms and legs, and he had a punch and a lot of heart, but he really put the work in. I mean, that's the part he doesn't get credit for. You don't win an Olympic medal in 2 years, make an Olympic team, and then win a medal in 2.5 years without putting a lot of work in. You know, you don't come up through the pro ranks. You don't outbox Permain Stavern, a prime Stavern, for 12 rounds without being able to box. So he's continually gotten better and better from day one all the way through.
Did he ever pose challenges for you in the early days, or was he always, from the minute you met him, Did you feel that this was going to be a special character?
I thought it was. I had to learn him. Every fighter is different. And my journey as a trainer, I was always the sparring partner and the manager and I was always the sparring partner and the promoter.
The sparring partner?
Oh, yeah, with everybody.
Oh, lucky old you.
Yeah. All the way from when I was 15 to when I was about 45.
Wow.
I was sparring guys. And it became a thing where, you know, my brother got out of the business and I had to look for a trainer because he was always the trainer. So I went to Ronnie Shields, who's a great friend of mine.
Yes.
I actually talked to Ronnie today. Went to Ronnie Shields and made some calls to California. I talked to a friend of mine in Italy named Sambu Kalambe, who was the middleweight champion of the world.
I remember
Fought Harold
Kalambe,
Graham,
yeah,
fought
yeah.
Harold Graham twice.
Yes.
And the Irishman, Steve Collins. And talked to him, and I came up with a program that I believed in. And when I came back and said, you know, I'm the new trainer, this is what we're going to do, the first guy in the door was Deontay Wilder. Wow. So we literally came up together. 15 years now we've been together. That's longer than most marriages.
One of the things that I heard him talk about recently that kind of really pinged my heart in many ways, and as you know, I've met Deontay several times now, and I think he's an extraordinary human being and a very deep human being, was that I'd never heard him talk about having a gun in his lap when he was like 19 and Naya was coming along. You know, obviously she has spina bifida. Naya was coming along and he put a gun in his lap and he was thinking about chopping himself. Did you know that he was thinking about that at the time?
I never had any idea that it.
Yeah,
that it
but you've heard the story, obviously.
Yeah, but it's one of those things where I think that, you know, he was just he was trying so hard to do something, and it seemed like every door was closing.
3 jobs, he couldn't get anywhere.
Yeah, and it just didn't seem like there was a light at the end of the tunnel. And then when he started boxing, his thought was just to make money. Like, find me a fight, let's make $500. Find me another fight for $1,000. That doesn't. I'm going to do the best I can. But once we saw that he had some real talent and potential, we talked about it together and collectively made the decision, you know, let's not take the fast road. Let's take the slower road and let's see where it leads. Let's really do it the right way. And boy, it's the best decision that we've ever made.
Okay, we've talked about the history of you guys. Fast forward 15 years, okay, and he is regarded now as arguably one of the most dangerous knockout artists in the heavyweight division of all time, and the heavyweight division is about knockouts, let's be honest. You know, he's compared with Liston, Tyson, Shavers, Foreman, Ali, anyone you can care to mention, Johnson, all these guys. The history of the black man in the heavyweight division, the history of the puncher in the heavyweight division, the tapestried history that exists with the freedom of black Americans within the sport as well. It's an extraordinary journey. It's cultural, it's racial, and it's sporting. It's all those things melded together.
Right.
It's an extraordinary history. It's why it fascinates so many of us as fight intellectuals, and I know you're one as well. With Deontay, we saw an extraordinary fight on December the 1st in Los Angeles, 2018. You know, you were right there. I mean, you can't get closer than you were to the fight itself. When you look back on it, those 12 rounds against Tyson Fury, how do you feel from a distance? Removing how you feel about the second fight, how did you feel in the days and months afterwards when you analysed it?
Kind of empty. It was kind of like an empty feeling because we'd always had the feeling of victory, you know. And I thought we had won that one, but I knew that you know, Deontay said it best, that he pressed. He was trying so hard to impress that he pushed, and he was trying to make something happen, which is almost a guaranteed way to not make it happen. It's like a baseball. You try to hit a home run, you're not going to hit a home run. Well, Deontay was going, you know, trying to land the knockout shot. And it's better when he just does his thing, the knockout comes. When he's trying to get it, you know, that's when it's not going to happen. And Fury was fantastic that night. And so it wound up being a great fight. But for me, it was just kind of an empty feeling because I wanted that win so bad. I thought we had it, but it was called a draw. And so I think it's, you know, it sets up quite well for the I'm glad to have another shot at it, I'll tell you that.
When you went when you went into the 12th round that night and you saw Fury hit by the right hand, then the left hook following, and Fury went down, seemingly out. What did, if you can recall, what did you go through in those few seconds as he hit the canvas?
Well, I thought it was over, but no, by no means did I celebrate or anything like that, because I think my first reaction was get Deontay to a neutral corner, because that's that's going to cost you if the guy does get it. So that's almost always what I do when somebody goes down, to get my guy to the neutral corner. So I'm still working. And so by no means did I say it's over. We done. I was very surprised that he got up, and I remember being surprised that it hadn't been waved off. I thought it would have been waved off when you get to 5 or 6 and the guy hasn't moved. I thought it would have been waved off. But at the end of the day, he got up. He fought through it, and they called it a draw. So here we are.
Boxing being what it is, though, when you get a great fight and there's controversy, the second fight is bigger, they get paid more people will watch, we probably get 4 times the number, and it's made Deontay a star, it's made your gym more well known, it's made Tyson Fury a bigger name. When you hear everything that's being said this time around, do you agree that Deontay needs to make adjustments this time without trying to get your game plan? Is it important that he makes adjustments this time?
Well, I think the adjustments are going to be internal. It's not so much things relative to Fury as it is just things that we need to do better, and that is not getting over anxious, controlling the pace. We just need to Deontay needs to continue to get the rest that he needs. He needs to continue to eat regularly, and
you're being a politician now.
He came in at 212,
yeah,
and then on fight night he was 209. So by the time he knocked Fury down in the 12th round, he was quite possibly a cruiserweight. So it's important that a guy like Deontay keeps his nutrition up.
I see what you mean.
If he does all the right things, I think the improvement will come from that. Is what I'm trying to say.
Do you agree? I want to go on to Ben Davison in a minute, because I know that you guys had a fantastic chess-like relationship as well. Do you agree with what some people are saying, that Deontay felt in the first fights that he probably thought he could just go in there and hit Fury at some point, because Fury had returned from those 30 months in the wilderness, he'd shed 10 stone, and he'd had 2 kind of facile comeback fights at that point, and maybe Deontay mentally didn't have the sharpness that he may have this time when they fight.
I'm not sure. I'm not sure. I think that
I'm not trying to be insulting. I'm just suggesting what's been said.
I think it's more a thing where he was just his first big pay-per-view, and I think it was just a thing where he wanted so bad to impress everyone and put a lot of pressure to get that knockout quickly and to have that huge moment. And I think that was probably more where that came from.
Do you think we will see him less wild this time then?
Yeah. I think you'll see a much more disciplined, controlled, like you did with Ortiz. He's strategically getting Ortiz where he needed him to be to land the big shot. And I think that was that's what it's all about is making sure that the shots that you're throwing are landable shots.
I sat down with Ben Davison the other day. He's out for the fight. I think he's still texting Tyson pretty much daily. Are you surprised that Ben Davison isn't in the camp this time around?
I am surprised, because you got to remember what all they went through together. Ben was not just a trainer. Ben, I mean, goodness, when he and Tyson started, it was like people laughed at him. People said it was impossible.
Who was this young kid? What did he know?
And here he became trainer, analyst, strategist,
mentor, consultant, psychologist. But that's what you've got to be, isn't it?
Psychologist,
exactly.
Everything. And so he really was great for Fury, and I think Fury was great for him. It was a two-way street. It was a really true two-way street between the both of them to phenomenal success. So the fact that he's not in this one, I don't know exactly what happened, but I know that it's probably to our advantage. That even though I think Javon's a good trainer from everything I hear, it's just that Ben is that guy that's going to stay up all night looking at film, and because that's what I do, and I think I could probably text Ben and say, what do you see about us? Because and he would be awake because he's studying. So I think
so you're going to miss that chess match in a way.
I enjoyed it. I really did. I like Ben personally as well. So I really it's trainers are competitive people too, and so I've got a draw on my record, and Ben is the guy that was in the other corner. So
I want to read you something he said to me. Okay,
sure.
Deas is a phenomenal trainer, a lot smarter, and Deontay is a lot smarter boxer than what people think. The great thing about Jay is that he's not after the limelight. Just because you have a long body of work, it doesn't mean you're not good. I think he's a phenomenal trainer. But he also said, the reason I've studied Deontay so much is because I know how good he is, and I know what Jay has been in a part of that.
Oh, I appreciate that, but it's the exact same the other way around. That was what kept me doing all the research as well, because you don't do what Ben did and luck into it. That doesn't happen. It wouldn't have happened with any other. Those two guys just had something together. It's almost the Lennon-McCartney thing. I mean, there's something about both of them are very successful, or were very successful, but there's something when they were together that was magical. And I think it was like that for Fury and Ben.
He used a brilliant expression, I thought, which encapsulated what you and Deontay do together, and he called it offense disguise. Mm-hmm. Does that resonate with you? And that's where he was so successful against Luis Ortiz. Mm-hmm. That's where he was so well. He didn't need to employ that game plan for too long against Dominique Breazeale because the opening was there. But offense disguise, Ben said, is really underrated, and that it's almost like a paradigm. People hate me using that word always, but it's almost like a paradigm that Deontay has used so brilliantly that you guys, it's a game of inches, isn't it?
Yes.
And it's a game at the top level. It is about game plans, and it's the inches that will count in this second fight, I presume.
Yeah, I really believe that. And the thing that he's, when you've got the right hand that Deontay has, game plan number one is to not get hit by it and do everything you can to nullify it. Ortiz, when we get close to Ortiz, he would cram us. He would literally almost jump into us so as to be inside the right hand or outside the right hand, never at the end of the right hand. And he was good enough for a long time. It was a chess match to try to get just the right spacing. At the end of about 40 seconds left in the sixth round, it's okay. Now we're there. Now we're where we are. But when somebody knows that that's your money punch, they're going to try to do everything they can to nullify it. You have to disguise it in such a way. You can't just come out and say, "Here's the right hand. I'm going to throw it." It's not. These guys are too good for that. You've got to get them. It's almost like magic. You've got to get them looking at this, or your feint, or your hook, or whatever it's going to take to get them. It could even be just a momentary thing that you're doing that's gonna disguise what you're really trying to do.
You'll love this, because Ben said to me, people kept seeing Wilder throw a left hook to the body of Ortiz and a left hook to the shoulder of Ortiz. People thought they were getting his arms tired. No, that's not what he was doing. He was positioning Ortiz to have to go towards Wilder's right hand. You know this. You're laughing about it now.
I'm laughing about it because Ben is as I talk into your Don King hairdo microphone. It looks like a bobblehead for Don King, but I can't quite get that image out of my head. I'm talking into Don's hair, but yeah, that's Ben. Ben had it exactly right. That's it would be quite interesting if Ben and I worked together with a fighter in the future. That would be quite fun. It would be the two most extreme boxing nerds in the world together. It would be an absolute madhouse, because I never tire of talking about boxing, and I feel Ben is the same. And he's a much younger guy, so it's amazing that he sees what he sees, because it takes. I never saw at his age what he's seeing. I'm not as smart as Ben. It took years and years before you're seeing those little things, and I'm seeing more now than I saw 3 years ago, and I hope to see more 3 years from now than I see now.
Couple of final questions, quick fire questions on February the 22nd, MGM Grand, Las Vegas. We cannot wait for it. I want to thank you, before I forget, for having me into the gym. It's really appreciated.
Well, no problem. We only lack the barbecue finale, which, you can't come to Alabama and not get barbecue.
Listen, I'm also being dripped on by the holes in your roof, which means it's a proper old
So
gym.
you may have the coronavirus when you go get the
Oh,
barbecue.
don't start that. Look, final things, right? Do you believe that Tyson Fury's really looking for the knockout this time?
Great question. Not sure. Don't care. Whatever he does, we've got to be ready for it, because he's just a phenomenal fighter, and I want everybody to realize that, because I think that's gonna make people realize how great Deontay Wilder is when he secures the victory, because Tyson Fury is as good as there is.
Is this fight for the #1 heavyweight in this generation?
There is no question this is the fight that will name the heavyweight, the one face, one name, one champion heavyweight for this generation. This is going to be that. Looking back 15 years from now, this will be that Tyson of the 80s and Holy of the 90s and Lennox of the. This will be that guy, and it's going to be Deontay Wilder.
Brilliant. Thank you very much as always, Jay.
Thank you. Glad to be here. I'm here anytime.